You probably already figured out that even though you know your scales, your arpeggios and your jazz chords, then that doesn't mean that your solos all sound amazing, and it might seem like magic if you listen to people like Wes or George Benson. But actually there is a way to work on this. It isn't magic, it just takes a bit of work, and if you fix these problems, you're gonna sound a lot better. My name is Jens Larsen, learn jazz, make music. I'm going to start with an unpopular public service announcement that might just be the best advice you're gonna find on the internet this month.
Wait for it.
And it's also something that you actually need to do if you want to benefit from the rest of this video. And that is that you want to record yourself so that you know what you sound like. You cannot tell how you really sound if you're also busy playing. So if you want to work on your phrasing, on your timing or your swing feel, then recording yourself is by far the best way to tell how you actually sound. I know this can be kind of a painful experience, especially in the beginning, but trust me, you do get used to it. I record myself all the time. I never like it, but I do really benefit from it, and I would suggest you do this as well. The first thing you want to fix is that you don't want to accent all the downbeats if you're playing 8-note lines. That's something that sounds great if you're playing Texas Boogie.
Yeah.
But it's a lot less fantastic if you're playing a bebop theme. It's very common for beginners to want to give an accent on the downbeat of a swing feel, but actually that's not how you really play swing, and you want to play more even so that you can use the dynamics and the accents as a part of how you phrase, how you make the lines that you play sound great. Now this is quite easy to start working with because you can actually just start working with playing some scales and starting to build that control. So if you start playing a simple G major scale like this one, then first try to play it where you're accenting all the downbeats. And try the same where you're accenting all the upbeats. Now in general, when you're playing the scales and the melodies, you don't really want to have those accents in there just as a habit. You want to have the control to only put them in where you want to have important notes come out of the line and make it more interesting to listen to. And actually, that's the next thing I want to talk about. If you start playing your 8-note lines more even, and especially with more even dynamics, you can also start to add in some accents that are really going to make the phrases come alive. And this is definitely something you also want to start recognizing when you're listening to the solos that you like, because dynamics and especially these accents within 8-note lines are a huge part of that sound, and probably also what you actually really like about the bebop lines. Let's try and compare two versions of one line. The second version of this line sounds a lot more interesting because we have those accented notes, so not everything sounds the same and some notes are just popping out and sort of catching the attention of the listener. When it comes to phrasing, then I don't think there are any sort of really hard rules.
There are no rules.
So the material that I'm covering here are guidelines. It's stuff that you can take away and use so that it fits your taste and also fits how you want to sound. When it comes to adding accents to lines, then there are a lot of different options for that. And I actually have a few videos where I'm talking about this, giving you a lot of examples of it, and I'm linking to those in the description of this video. Here I'm not going to go into it that much, but I'm going to cover the two main strategies that I think you want to work with if you want to develop this aspect of your playing. The first one is what I use in the example that you just heard. So here I'm looking at the line and then I'm trying to find the notes that are higher than the notes that come after them and that are off the beat. Those I can give an accent, and then I'm just choosing some of those, really the ones that I think sound better, and giving those an accent to really create a line that's a little bit more interesting. The other one is to use groupings to create accents and then maybe have some sort of interesting rhythm that's shifting on top of the meter. That could sound something like this. Since these accents and the dynamics within the line are really important in jazz phrasing, then you kind of also have an idea about why we don't use distortion really a lot, because a signal like that is actually very compressed and we kind of lose that dynamic range. Let's say you're playing a solo on a blues in F. That might sound something like this. Now, if If your lines sound like this, then you're really nailing the changes, everything is clear, the melodies that you're playing are actually making sense, but there's still something that's a bit off. And that's because you're ending all the phrases on the downbeat, really on the heavy beats, on the 1 and on the 3. And that's just not how it works in bebop. In fact, bebop is called like this because the ending of a phrase is bebop. Bebop, which means that B is on the beat and bop is on an offbeat. So you don't really want to end on the heavy downbeats all the time. You want to go into the bar and make it a little bit longer and then end on an offbeat. Something like this. And this is actually something that's fairly easy to practice and get into your playing if you're just aware of it. Just making your lines a little bit longer and ending with a few different rhythms is something that you can quite quickly get into your playing if you start working on it. So I would just go for that if you don't do it already. In classical music, they sometimes refer to the guitar as the staccato festival because it doesn't really have any sustain, it can't really play long notes. And in jazz, we kind of have the same problem a little bit. So we spend a lot of time trying to play legato, trying to connect the notes and not have all these gaps in between the notes when we're playing a melody so that we sound like somebody talking who's out of breath. But when it comes to jazz phrasing, then that kind of becomes a bad habit because you don't always want to play a long note at the end of the phrase like this one. And this doesn't really work for jazz phrasing because if you play a long note, then you're kind of losing the emphasis of the rhythm. It becomes unclear where that note began and where it's put in the groove. And that connection is really important for jazz phrasing. So it's much better to practice playing short notes at the end of phrases. And actually, it's not so difficult to get used to. When it comes to working on phrasing, then of course recording yourself, as I said in the beginning of this video, is very useful. But the other thing that you definitely also want to spend some time on is recordings of other people. So trying to learn some solos by ear and by heart, play them together with the recording so that you really get to really dig into that phrasing, feel how it feels to play it and how it locks in with the track, and in that way get it into your playing. This is really effective and actually also quite efficient, so definitely worth checking out and working on. Maybe at some point I should make a video recommending some easy solos to transcribe. Let me know in the comments. If you want to dig deeper into phrasing and get your solos to sound a lot better, then check out this playlist with a few videos where I'm really just going into different ways and different exercises that you can improve your phrasing so that your solos really start to pop more and your lines just sound stronger and lock in with the groove.